Hi, in this video I'm going to try and convince you that data sources are evil. Now, of course, not all data sources are evil. I'm talking from the perspective of a module author, especially one that's developing quite a low-level building block type of modules, such as the ones we have in Azure Verified Modules. In fact, the example today has come from some lessons learned from the Azure Verified Modules project. So let's start with a look into why data sources are evil from the perspective of a module author, and then move on to some of the lessons on how an alternative approach is. Let's dive in. Let's demonstrate why data sources are evil. Hopefully by the end of this you will agree with me. So we have a Terraform data resource. What that is doing is providing some dependencies for the data source. So what the first input to the Terraform data is the RG name, data sources are evil. Cool. And we've also got something else that we don't care about. So part of that dependency that isn't really pertinent to us. And I'll explain what that's for later. So this is quite common. Some people have inputs to data sources that are variables or the results of other things in the dependency graph. So let's just put the data source for that resource group now. But crucially, we're going to make it dependent on the output of that. So that's we're creating a dependency on a computed value for that resource. Again, very common. This will work. Let's now add a resource. Now, what's quite a simple resource that we can create? So if I go resource, Azure RM user assigned identity, something like that, demo. I'm going to put evil data sources, much more fun. Name, something like evil data sources, that's fine. Location. Now, this is going to be the location of the resource group. Resource group name is also going to be that. So really, really simple. You'd expect that to work. So we init, oops, Terraform init that. No, I can't spell. There you go. Right. Terraform plan. I always do this. I think I'd learned by now, wouldn't you? I literally just created this for this demo. There you go. Now, I should mention that I have actually pre-created this resource group. So if I bring up this window here, oh no, I've lost it now. I put it in another terminal window. I've just created the resource group with az group create. So that does exist. You can see that we're going to read in the data source and then it's going to create the resource based on that. Okay, so this is going to work, I suspect. Hopefully it won't take very long. It's created the Terraform data resource. It's now reading the resource group and it's done it. Hooray. What's the problem? This is the problem. Whatever, dude. I'm going to change something that actually has got nothing to do with any of these resources. However, Terraform doesn't know that. So what happens here is this. I was worried that I was worried that it was going to work, but actually I just needed to scroll up. Here we go. Azure RM user assigned identity evil data sources must be replaced. Why? Nothing's changed that we care about. Well, the reason is because the location is now known after apply. Now, the reason is because the dependency's changed and this data source is dependent on this dependency because we've referenced it here. Now, Terraform's not clever enough to know that actually this thing is the only thing that's changed. And as such, the result and output is going to be consistent, right, with the resource group name. Terraform's not clever enough to know that. So what it does is because we're using the outputs of this resource, so i.e. something that's been computed, so not known till after apply, it marks every single dependency in the chain as not known till after apply, and your resource will end up being recreated. So how do you fix this? Well, don't use data sources. What I really mean by that is remove as many dependencies from your chain as possible. Terraform's really, really good at making implicit dependencies between things just by the way you can do this. But just because you can put a dependency in there does not mean that you should. And I think that's the key message. Just because you can create a dependency does not mean that you should. Now, in that last clip, I was being a little unfair to Terraform. It actually has no knowledge on what the provider is doing with inputs related to outputs. All it knows is that some of the inputs to the resource was changing, and that means that the computed outputs may also change. It doesn't know that it will, it doesn't know that it won't. The problem here is that you've created a dependency, so everything following on from that is then not known till after apply, and then you get into the problem that we just experienced. So what lessons can we take here? As a module author, if you want to make your modules robust, when you have dependencies, take in those dependencies using the simplest form possible. As an example, if you need a location, just take the location as a string. Don't try and be clever and infer it from the resource group that the caller provided. If they want to use a data source to do that, they can do that outside of the module, because then they have the choice about whether to take the risk of the scenario happening where stuff might get accidentally recreated. Then they have that choice. If you put it inside your module, they have no choice, and they're affected by it no matter what. If you have a dependency on another resource, take that in as a resource ID. It's the simplest way of doing it. They are predictable. You can use regular expressions to understand to create validation rules to understand if the resource ID is correct. So you can then present a sensible error message to the caller of your module really early on. And using a simple split function, then you can take out the bits of that resource ID that are important to you. It's a nice standard way of sharing data between modules. So you might not be that good at regular expressions, and I completely hear you. They're a bit of a pain. So let's have a look at some examples of how we can use a bit of AI to help us create this. So if we look at this window here, you can see that I've got a variable for, as an example, storage account resource ID. Now, if I just type validation, that's going to come up with a suggestion. Now, that isn't particularly good, right? If you look at that regular expression, it's saying any one or more of any character, then followed by storage accounts and a slash, and then some more stuff afterwards, which is pretty rubbish. So what I suggest we do is bring up Copilot chat, and you can see I've asked this question before. I'm going to ask it again though, because it's now got the context of the correct variable name in there. So, ooh, it did not work. Should we do that again? Yeah, okay, transient error. So it's now saying, yeah, you can add a rich validation rule, and it's going to say, there you go. So if we just scroll, okay, this is much better regular expression. It's saying the beginning of the string, then it's got to be slash subscriptions, then it's got to be a valid GUID, which is done for us, then resource groups, then any character apart from a slash, then providers, storage, right? That's a much better regular expression that you can use. And I think if I just click that button, it'll add it for me. There you go. So you don't have to be a genius. Of course, you may want to test this and check that it's right, but just eyeballing it, that looks pretty good to me. And that's how you can use regular expressions to validate that your input variables are sound, and also take dependencies in the simplest way possible. So I hope that was useful. If you did find this video useful, please give us a like, a comment, subscribe. That would all be much appreciated. We are going to be making this recommendation to AVM module authors, so you might find that data sources for resource groups get removed from your resource modules that you've been using. We apologize. I know this might be a breaking change because we might have to make the location variable mandatory now. We were trying to make it easy for people, but it just turns out actually it caused more problems than it appears to solve. So it's all part of the learning process. I hope you can bear with us while we make these changes, and this is just another reason why we're not quite at V1 at these modules yet. We're still going to come up against these things every now and again. So yeah, let me know via feedback in the comments, or drop me a message on LinkedIn if you've got anything that you want to discuss in private. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and see you next time.